Spirit Shackle Media.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Silver Scream, episode 2. I'm Tom.
I'm Grahm.
I was about to introduce you, and then I was like, oh wait, no, wait. Grahm, I got a little confession to make.
Alright.
This afternoon I watched a movie, a horror movie that I thought was going to be a harmless horror movie. And then right before we hit record, I realized that it was actually on our list, and I didn't think it was. So I did a fuck up.
Which movie is it?
Yeah. I watched the film Hereditary. Have you heard of
Yes! Oh my god. Oh,
Have you
I'm so
seen it?
happy with that. Yes, I love that movie so much.
Man, I kept seeing it all on r/horror on Reddit, and everybody was just saying, just go in and watch Hereditary without any context or knowing anything about the movie whatsoever. And like, it just got me so intrigued because I just wanted to know what everybody was talking about. That movie's just bananas, man. I don't even know what to say. It's so good.
Yeah, hopefully we get it soon.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I don't want to say too much about the movie just because I don't want to
No.
spoil anything for any
No.
viewers right now who haven't watched it, but, well, listeners.
No. I definitely want to say that right away. It is like one of those movies where I don't feel like I've missed out by watching it for when we do the episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's a movie that benefits from having multiple watches.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just do the same advice everybody else gave me. So anybody listening to this that hasn't seen Hereditary, I urge you to watch it without any context, because I think that made so much difference to my enjoyment of that movie.
Yeah, I totally agree.
My first impression, 9 out of 10. A strong 9 out of 10. That was a solid horror movie.
I don't remember what my initial review was, but I also gave it, well, I would give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to confess that I cheated a little bit by accident, but it was an honest mistake, so I think we can kind of call that up. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, welcome to the Silver Scream, guys. This episode we are talking about the movie Phantasm. We're going to just go into a little bit of detail about how it was made, a few little things about it. We're going to talk a little bit about the bonkers plot, and then we'll cap it off with some funny reviews or some trivia that is quite interesting. So, Grant, why don't you tell us a little bit about this movie?
Alright, so the movie came out in 1979, but actually started production in 77, I believe, or 75.
Damn. That's an old horror movie.
Yeah, it was in development for a while. The writer and director, Don Cazarelli, I think that's how you pronounce it.
I always think I didn't know how to say it. I was like Don Coscarelli, but then like I don't know. But
Coscarelli.
I don't know how you say it.
I'm gonna call him Don.
Yeah, Donnie. Yeah, oh man.
Yeah. He actually got the idea from a nightmare he had.
Yeah.
This was his third feature film. He had 2 other movies before this. And then for this movie, he had a budget of around $300,000. And over the course of its lifespan, it's made almost $12 million. So think about that profit.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Imagine. That's like the dream. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah, it had its initial release, and then in 2015, I believe, there was a remastered edition that came out, thanks to Bad Robot Productions, because J.J. Abrams, who is involved with Bad Robot Productions, he was a huge fan of Phantasm, and he wanted to screen it with some friends, but the director, Don, he didn't have a decent print, like a high-res print, so JJ had some people at his production company remaster it, and then through that they released it. It's the most common version to find nowadays. I found it on Shudder. I don't know where you found it.
Yeah, it was the same for
Um,
me. That was the copy that we watched, wasn't it? We watched the remaster and not the original copy.
yeah. Um, and since the movie had such a small budget, they had to use a lot of guerrilla filming tactics. Like, Don would rent film equipment on Friday and then return the equipment on Monday so that he could use the equipment throughout the whole weekend because the film rental place was closed during the weekends. So he could get a full weekend's worth of use after only paying one day. Um,
Oh my god, I didn't know that. That's so good.
yeah,
That's so clever.
that's really genius, but I don't think you could do that nowadays. I think
No way. There's no way that will work now. Yeah.
um,
That's insane.
they had to use a lot of practical effects. The main car in the movie, they bought it, and then the older brother and then the younger brother, they customized it to really help bond the actors over it and really help give that car a sense of I wouldn't say reality, give it some more levity because it's not just some car they got off the lot. It feels like it's been used. And the child actor, I believe his character was Michael. Correct.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
so.
the actor who played Michael, he actually learned how to drive in that car when he was only 14.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, imagine learning how to drive at 14 and then learning how to drive that car at 14. That would be incredible.
What experience. Yeah.
Um, let's see. Uh,
The one
uh,
thing I noticed,
yeah,
well, I didn't recognize any actors except Michael Baldwin, and even him I barely recognized because he's like a Baldwin, and that was about the only
yeah.
celebrity that I could catch. I don't know about you.
Um, I didn't even recognize Michael Baldwin. Angus Scrim, he played the tall man. I believe that's the name. He's been in a lot of horror movies. He's like a huge character actor.
Oh,
Like just
okay.
off of his IMDb, Chopping Mall, other Phantasm sequels, Subspecies, Wishmaster. Yeah, there's a whole lot of them.
I
He
was unfamiliar with him, to be honest. It's not a name I've heard before.
I have not heard the name, but I definitely recognize him. Like I
Yeah,
watched Chopping Mall a while back.
that name is great. I love it. I've never heard of
Chopping
it, but I
Mall.
like the name. Yep.
Um, is it on our list?
I don't know if it is. I
I
haven't
don't
looked at
think
the list
so.
in a while, which is
Um,
why I watch Hereditary.
yeah, I don't think it's on the list. I didn't really care for it. Like for with the name of Chopping Mall, you'd expect like this really campy, gory
Yeah.
action. It had like one decent kill. And it was there. It was really disappointing in my opinion. It just it didn't justify the name. Like that name is perfect for
Yeah.
what the movie should be, but the movie didn't live up to that.
That's sad.
Um.
Oh,
Anyways,
oh
back
did I?
back.
Sorry, can I quickly? I
Oh
want
yeah,
to
go ahead.
interject. Speaking of movies like Chopping Mall, have you? Did I ever tell you about a movie gift that I saw for a film called Poultrygeist? Have you ever heard of this movie?
Wait, are you saying poltergeist or poultrygeist?
The second one, Poultrygeist.
Oh gee, no. What's that?
Oh man, okay, so I have no idea because I haven't looked into it since, and I want to. I feel like it needs to go. I don't know if it should be on the list. It should be a bonus episode or some point. It was like this gift that I saw, and it was like the lowest budget horror movie I've ever seen in my life, and it was called Poultrygeist 2: Night of the Chicken Dead, and it was just these
What is
people.
this?
Are you looking it up? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's these people dressed in like chicken costumes, and there was this scene that I just saw of this chicken zombie like brutally killing all these people in a kitchen, like dumping somebody's head in a deep fat fryer and like slicing their hands through like a meat slicer, and like it was the worst like practical effects you've ever seen, but it was so hilariously bad that I loved it.
Oh my god. Yeah, we have to add this. This looks amazing.
Yeah, in a way, it looks so bad that I kind of want it to just be like a bonus episode because I feel like it's in a whole different league of its own. But
On IMDb, it's classified as a comedy horror musical.
wow, okay, it's a musical as well.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I wanna watch this. It looks terrible.
Yeah, yeah, we should definitely add it to the list or have a bonus episode for that.
Let's discuss it later. Sorry. Okay, back to Phantasm. Let's.
Yeah, so the director, he hasn't just dipped his toes into the horror franchise, well, genre. He also directed, um, first, I think just the first Beastmaster movie. Um,
Okay.
and then I think he might have written the second one. Um, but then back to horror, he also did Bubba Hotep, which has, I am blanking on his name, Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell in it as
Oh, really?
Elvis Presley, I believe. And he's fighting a mummy.
This
So,
movie sounds crazy. I've never heard of that either.
yeah, it sounds like something from the director of Phantasm.
Yeah, it really does.
Um,
uh,
that's all I had on background information.
the only extra thing I got was that its stats on IMDb are a 6.8 out of 10 currently, and it's got a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, so pretty high for a horror movie, to be fair.
Yeah.
And it's had a huge cult following, and it's spawned 4 sequels. The latest, called Phantasm Ravager, came out in 2016, which is 18 years after the previous movie. So, and also what I did notice is that most of the stars of Phantasm Ravager are the main characters from this movie that we're talking about today. So it's made like a huge impact on a lot of the actors that started in 1979, and they're still working on movies to this day.
That's really impressive.
I know. Imagine being this guy. Imagine being Don, and like having all your friends come back again, like 35 years later to do another movie. Like, yeah, what an impact! What a guy.
Yeah.
So I was really impressed when I heard that. So should we get into a little bit? I think before we talk about the plot, I want to talk about a couple of things. The music was one thing I really thought
Music
stood out.
was stellar. I loved the music so much.
Yeah, as much as I have mixed feelings on the movie as a whole, I was really impressed by the music. That was the one thing I thought was better than everything.
Yeah, it had such catchy music and, um, dare I say, iconic.
I actually had the word zeitgeist written down here. Yeah, it's so in keeping with that like 70s, 80s horror movie aesthetic that like it's yeah, it is that kind of music. It's perfect for that sort of time. And I'd heard it before, even though I've never heard of Phantasm, I recognize that soundtrack.
Yeah, so did I.
It's the perfect representation of the themes of this movie, like supernatural sci-fi horror. I really thought it matched perfectly. It's great when a piece of music just portrays exactly what you're gonna hear, and I feel like they did that really well. It's really cool. I mean, it's not as good as 28 Days Later's soundtrack. I think that's still the best horror movie soundtrack of all time.
Oh, that one's pretty great. I'd have to think on it a bit more. And get back to you on what I
Yeah,
think is the best.
it
But
just came to my head because I listened to this soundtrack again, and like a lot of the music throughout this movie is the same piece of music, but it's been remixed or edited in a certain way, so it's not the same, but it is.
Mhm.
And it just it all that came into my head after listening to it was 28 Days Later, and I had to just go and listen to that straight away because it'd been a while since I've heard it, so it was really nice to just go on that little trip down memory lane. What did you think of the film poster? Have you seen the film poster?
um, the
I
the
mean,
original one or the
Yeah,
remake?
the original one. So
Um,
the original one it's got this the I don't even know what it's called. It's that sphere, that metal sphere with spikes on it, and it's got Michael on top of it with the tall man in front of it.
yeah.
Uh,
I really like it. It's very of the time.
yeah,
Um,
that's what I thought.
I like the Jawas. I guess I don't know
Yeah,
what they're actually called, but they remind me of Jawas. I like those in the back. I like that there's the casket, and then I think that's the
my
older
flavor.
brother.
Yeah, the flavor text is my favorite though. Of all, if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. I love it. It's so cheesy now when you read it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
it's a
I
cool
I
poster.
also like the remastered version as well. I think that's a pretty cool poster.
I don't think I've seen the poster for the remastered. I'll quickly look it up. Um, what does it look like?
Um,
Oh, I
so
see it.
like
Oh, that's
yeah,
really cool. Yeah, it's got the tall man right front and center, and then the background's actually a grave with like tons of the spheres around.
and then at the bottom there's all the Jawas, and then there's Michael, and then
The
he's in
lady in
between.
lavender.
Well, yeah, and then Michael and all the Jawas are in between the tall man's hands. Like,
That's right. Yeah,
yeah, that's a cool poster.
yeah. Oh, I turns out the Jawas are actually called zombie dwarves.
Zombie
Which,
dwarves.
yeah, okay, apparently so. That's what it says here. Fair enough.
All right, zombie
uh,
dwarves. Got it.
okay, so this episode's a little bit more off the cuff, so I haven't got like a. Last time I wrote like a kind of my own summary of Creep, but this time I haven't because this movie was just so. There's so much going on in one movie that I kind of thought it'd make more sense just to read up some of the main points just from a website that I found. So, I'm
The reason why I think we should say the reason why. Anyways, the reason why we decided to do this was just because watching the movie and like trying to describe it was like trying to describe a nightmare you had.
yeah,
It's it's just so weird and bizarre, and you don't know what's reality and what isn't within the context of the movie, and
yeah,
such bizarre imagery, and it was very
I,
unique.
yeah, it was. So yeah, I mean, we should just do like a brief summary of what happened in the movie, and then we can just kind of talk about how crazy it was for a
Yeah.
while. So it starts with a character named Tommy, and he's with a lady who we never get a name for, but everyone just calls her the Lady in Lavender. And they're having sex in a cemetery. And the first thing that came to my head was like, oh, they had to just like get some titties out right at the beginning of the movie, just to like,
They gotta draw their audience in right away.
yeah, and they did, fair enough. Like, but I was
Um,
thinking like 1979, is that very common? I don't know. Like,
I don't know. I don't think was that common in graveyards, or at least it shouldn't have been. That seems like the least practical place. I don't know.
all the sex
Fun
took place in graveyards. Just wanted to bring that up.
fun fact about that: they actually had to use a body double for the woman in lavender because the actress who actually plays the character was not comfortable with nudity, so they had to
Wow.
find someone because apparently nudity was integral to the role of the
Of course, of
character.
course. Yeah, if you want to make 12 million out of 300 grand, yeah, it is. Yeah, well, I mean, she has such a small part in this movie. I'm surprised they didn't just like get another actress in, but you know, they use their money wisely. So yeah, he gets killed by the lady in lavender at the cemetery. She stabs him with a knife. Uh, and then it kind of just cuts to the next day, or is it a few days later? I think it
I
must be a few days later.
Yeah, I think it might be like a week because they have to plan the funeral and everything.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we get introduced to Tommy. No, not Tommy. Tommy's friend Jody, who's played by by Michael Baldwin, I believe. His friend Reggie and the brother
Uh,
Mike.
Sorry. Jody is played by Billy Thornbury. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Michael
Yeah.
Baldwin is Mike.
Oh man. Okay, yeah, I got those two totally mixed up then. Okay, that's fine. Okay, yeah, so we get introduced to Mike, Jody, and Reggie, who are kind of like the three protagonists of the movie. So Reggie and Jody are kind of the older guys; they're the best friends. Mike's the younger brother who kind of just gets in the way quite a lot at the beginning.
Yeah.
We kind of see a lot of the movie from Mike's perspective as well.
Yeah. They mention how Mike and Jody are siblings, and then they just lost their parents. So now Jody has to be the parent figure to Mike, but he doesn't really want to take on that responsibility. Um, I believe there was a cut subplot where Jody had to take on the family business, and he was dealing with the stress of that, and then trying to take care of his younger brother.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't know that. That's cool.
yeah, yeah.
So what else happened? So they were at the funeral and they didn't bring Mike along, did they? Because he
No,
didn't
he
want him.
was hiding in the bushes.
Yeah, and that's when he sees a mortician, doesn't he? Outside, lifting Tommy's 500-pound casket into the car by himself. Which,
Yeah, earlier they had set up that it required like six people to carry the casket, but then the tall man the mortician who we find out is the tall man,
yeah,
he carries it all on his own.
it's crazy. I mean, what struck me when I watched that more was like how awkward it looked like to hold anyway, though. Even though like he could obviously handle it, like you know when you try and pick up something that's that big and you're like, how do you hold this thing? And like,
Yeah. Um, the way
yeah,
they actually accomplished that effect, um, is the casket was made out of balsa wood, so it was lighter than an average casket, but it was still pretty heavy. So they had a cable attached to it and hidden in the back of the hearse. I
oh,
think in one or two frames you can see it, but that's how they got that effect.
that's really interesting. That's quite cool. I did wonder how they managed that because I was thinking like even so that's still going to be quite bulky unless they made it like out of I don't know. I don't even know what you'd have to make it out of to make it that light.
I always assumed it was styrofoam, but
Yeah, that makes sense. But anyway, Mike gets a bit freaked out by seeing that, and he gets on his motorbike and tries to ride away. And there's this weird like shot where it keeps jumping between the tall man's eyes and Mike riding his bike, and then all of a sudden he goes flying off the bike and just like eats shit, and then gets really scared and has to run away again.
yeah.
But he doesn't run home; he runs straight to a fortune teller and her granddaughter, which was a weird scene as well.
I don't know if that scene was really needed.
It felt
Um,
unnecessary, didn't it? I mean, it made sense because they showed up later a little bit, and there was a kind of like an introduced into their character, but the whole plot of that scene felt irrelevant.
yeah. Well, originally the movie was like the original cut was like 3 hours long, and so they had to cut a whole bunch of scenes. Um, I I want to know what other scenes were cut because I really think they could have changed that. Like I
Yeah,
don't think it's the most important.
no, it kind of. I feel like part of it comes up later because they tell him not to be afraid. Uh,
Like
uh,
that was it, but like
that was
otherwise it was like a 5 minute scene
yeah,
that just led to the basic conclusion of you need to you don't be scared, but well, spoiler alert, it doesn't work. I
it
think
really doesn't. Yeah,
I I don't know. Um, I don't know if the ending is in reality or not, or if it's another nightmare.
oh God knows. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
maybe
the
they'll
next,
get
sorry.
into that. maybe they'll get into the ending in the sequel. I don't know. We'll have to
Wait for it
get
to
in.
come up.
Yeah.
So the next scene is actually the fortune teller's granddaughter going to the mausoleum, and she's walking around, and she finds this strange, like this weird door, and she opens it, and it's all you can see is white light, and she screams. And do you see her again after that? I can't remember if she shows up later or not.
I don't know. I always assumed she just died there.
Yeah, me too. I mean, at this point, I was so confused when I saw that scene because I was like, "What could possibly be there?" Like, I mean, you find out later, but like, it just shows how crazy this movie gets. Like,
Yeah, characters just appear and disappear at random. Later in the movie, there's the mother and the daughter who give Mike a ride, and
yeah,
then they die. I think they didn't really
uh,
have an introduction, if I can remember correctly.
no, they didn't, did they? They were just kind of there. Um, they did survive, I believe, by the end of the movie. I mean, it depends how you see it.
I I, I don't know.
So, so we have another sex scene in a cemetery. Great. Again with the lady in lavender as well. She goes and seduces Jody in a bar this time and takes him to the cemetery. She just loves cemetery sex, clearly. Um, and it was so weird because Mike was just watching him from the bushes, like his brother have sex, and I was
Oh,
like, "This is so weird."
one of my favorite parts of the movie comes from this. Like she reveals herself, and then both of the brothers have the same exact reaction.
Yeah, but the
I
one thing that
believe they
crossed,
both say "wow."
yeah, that's right, yeah. But the one thing I thought was that from his angle, he wouldn't have seen anything, so I don't know what he was saying that for. Because, like, I swear he was just looking at his brother's ass the whole time. He wasn't actually looking at the girl. Like, he couldn't see anything. So I was just
It's
like,
just really creepy.
it's bizarre, yeah. But he hears something in the bushes around him, and it's like a short hooded figure, which we find out later is a zombie dwarf, but it comes running at him, and he just hightails it out of there, and he just runs across the
He's just
cemetery straight
screaming.
past.
And, and then Jody looks up and he's got the girl's panties in his teeth. And,
Oh yeah.
and I
Oh
like
man.
how he chases after Mike, but during that scene I was like, are you just going to leave her there? Like,
Yeah, what's that all
did
about? Like, there's a weird hooded guy, and your brother's running screaming, and you're gonna just abandon a girl. Like,
without her underwear.
oh man, that poor girl. Okay, so what happened next? I'm trying to see now. Oh, we get the spear scene. So
Um,
Mike goes back to Morningside to try and find something to show to Jody to prove that that he was right in what he said because Jody
yeah,
didn't believe him when he told him about what happened there. Uh,
yeah.
so he's walking through and a guy grabs him. I don't really know. I showed this to a friend at work earlier because I was like, I'm recording this episode about Phantasm and nobody had heard of it. And I was like, oh, you just got to see this one scene. And it was this scene here where a guy grabs him uh, and there's a silver sphere just flying through the air. And he ducks just in time for it to hit the guy that's grabbed Mike. And
Oh,
it's...
sorry to
Sorry.
interrupt, but before that, Mike has, I believe, what was a nightmare. He's falling asleep in his bed, and then he wakes up, and then his bed's in the graveyard.
Oh, man, I
Yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's the tall man standing behind him, and then there's all the Jawas that zombie dwarves, who drag him under, and then I believe is the that scene.
That's right. I remember actually thinking that was one of the one scary scenes from the movie. Like I could imagine, especially back in 1970s, 1980s, that would have actually been like a scary scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in the mausoleum again, and this guy, they say here it's a caretaker, grabs him, but he dodges
We've
just in
ne-
time for it to hit the caretaker.
yeah. Um, the sphere has like two blades on it, and embeds itself into the guy's head, and
Yeah.
then just starts shooting out blood everywhere.
It's like actually it was like a screw. Did you notice that? Because I didn't notice the first
Oh,
time, but the second time I watched it today on like a YouTube video, there was a screw thing that came out of the sphere that goes into the forehead and drills. So the two
um,
blades clamp, and then the drill drills. I guess.
all right.
Creepy.
A little behind the scenes, info on trivia on this
Yes, please.
scene. The way they got the effect of the sphere flying through the hallway is they would have a baseball pitcher throw it from off camera, and then they would just play it in reverse to get that effect. And then the Undertaker or whatever, the guy who gets killed, um, after he shot his scene, he didn't want to wash off all the makeup. He just wanted to go home, and he got pulled over by the cops. And the
Oh
cops
man.
didn't believe his story that he was filming a horror movie, especially with all the fake blood all over his face. So they had to get people from the crew to verify that he was in this really obscure B horror movie.
Oh my god, that's insane. Why did he just
Yeah,
get the makeup washed off his face? What was he thinking?
I don't
Was
know.
it worth it? Well, yes, it was clearly worth it. But
Yeah,
this whole scene with the like the blood coming out of this guy's head was just so outrageous. I was just watching it like, what is this? Like it was so silly. Like
yeah.
watching it now, I could never imagine it being scary. Like when you see things like this, and you're like, was this meant to be a really scary scene, or do you think this was meant to be kind of like comic back in the 1970s?
Um, I'm not sure because part of the movie is like it's like kind of like a comedy, like the brother watching it and like have sex, and it's like really comical. But then
Yeah,
there's like the like scary scenes of like the nightmares, and like I don't know. I think today it might be seen as a bit more silly, but I have no idea what Don was going for.
yeah, sure. So Mike then has to run away because the tall man shows up, and he runs behind. He goes behind this door and he tries to shut it, but the tall man kind of puts his hand out and he's trying to open the door. Um, and there's this whole scene where like the only payoff for the "don't be scared" comes in, where Mike has to like control his fears, and then once he relaxes and calms down, he can then shut the door and stop the tall man from getting to him.
And then when he closes the door, he notices that the tall man's fingers are trapped in the room, but they're just clamped by the door.
That's right. Yeah.
So Mike cuts off the fingers, and then they start bleeding mustard.
Yeah.
I don't think it might be mustard, but I don't know what they actually used, but it's supposed to be alien blood or
Yeah.
whatever.
It's bright
It's
yellow. Yeah.
yeah
It's mustard.
yeah. We'll just call it mustard.
Yeah, so he notices that the fingers are still moving as well, even when they're cut off. They've kind of got their own life still, so they're still moving around. So he picks one of them up and
Yeah,
puts it in a box and takes it home.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and he manages to get out alive. So he shows it to Jodie, and Jodie's like, "Okay, now I believe you." Uh,
yeah.
but then it does this. I think this is where it gets silly again as well. Like I feel like it must be a kind of silly horror. Is when the finger then turns into like a fly that you never really see.
It's like this weird, like fly demon creature. Like it's like the size of a hamster, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's super loud and aggressive and like tough.
yeah, it's got teeth and everything. It's flying around the house. They're chasing it. They eventually get down the disposal system in the kitchen, in the sink, and then their friend comes over. I'm blanking on his name. The one with the really bad
Reggie.
ponytail, Reggie.
Yeah,
Um, I and he comes in with one of the best, well, worst line deliveries, but I laughed so hard at it. It was, what the hell is going on here? Something along the lines of that. It was just so wooden. Just it was
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, I remember that actually now. Yeah. So he gets involved in this as well because they kill it. They manage to kill it together. They put it down the garbage disposal, don't they? And then
Yeah,
they get rid of it. So they decide to go back to Morningside, the mausoleum. But he doesn't want to take Mike with him, so he doesn't let Mike come. Is that right?
yeah. He takes
Uh,
the gun with him, and um he he tells Mike, um, if anyone shows up who's trying to hurt you, don't give them a warning. Just shoot them. Um,
that's right. Yeah,
I'll be back in a bit. Um, and then he goes there, and he breaks into the basement. And wasn't there a zombie dwarf in there, if I'm
yeah,
remembering correctly? Yeah.
yeah. He gets chased out of there, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then there is a car chase, I believe, or was that later?
Yeah, that's here. Yeah, with
All right.
a hearse without a driver.
Yeah, at least we think there's a driver. Mike picks up Jody with the muscle car, sports car, and the hearse is chasing them. Um, Jody's shooting it with a shotgun. Pieces are falling off until it crashes, and then they open up the door and it reveals it's a zombie dwarf.
Yeah, and it's not just a zombie dwarf; it's actually their friend Tommy,
Yeah,
who's been unnaturally shortened, and he weighs significantly more than average, apparently. So they've made him like squat, so he's like really heavy and small. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so this is when they all decide that they got to take down the tall man. So, uh, what happens? Oh, that's right. Yeah, they. This is where you meet up with the girls. They meet up with Sally. It says here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Reggie. Before that, Reggie puts the zombie dwarf in the back of his ice cream truck, and he's driving, and
that's right.
then he starts hearing growling from the back, and then it cuts to Mike getting a ride from these people.
Yeah. I've just got the name Sally. I've guessed the friend doesn't have a name because it just says Sally and her friend. So they're driving and they see Reggie's ice cream truck that's been overturned in the road. Um, and you see a handprint that's been melted into a block of ice in yellow blood.
Hmm. The
Um,
mustard.
the mustard, in mustard, yeah. This guy's selling hot dogs, really. Yeah. So that he tries to get them away. They're like, he's begging them to just go. And I was hearing the same thing, going like, come on, just go. Get out of there, get out of there. Why aren't you listening to this like screaming guy that's like obviously knows what he's talking about? Um, but they don't listen, and then all of a sudden the zombie dwarves just show up and just start attacking them in the car.
Yeah, he
Mike,
just clamps down on one of their necks.
yeah, and Mike gets thrown out of the back window, and then the girls, or it says the girls drive off, but I really didn't know who was driving the car at that point. The car just disappears; it just drives off into the distance without him.
Never to be seen again.
Yeah. So Mike has just assumes that they and Reggie are both dead now.
Yeah.
So Jody now decides that this is too dangerous, so he locks Mike in his room to keep him safe, and then goes on his own to Morningside.
And then Mike has to escape using some ingenuity. He has a shotgun shell left over, and he creates basically a door breaching device where he can blow off the lock and he can escape. It was a pretty fun scene.
I thought that was really clever, but I was wondering also, like, do you think it would work? Because like that's a really cool thing to know if that's true. But that looks so dangerous.
I have absolutely no idea. I don't want to test it because I don't want my
I'm not
hands
gonna
to
test
be
it.
blown off.
Yeah. So yeah, they go. Yeah, that's right. He goes to leave, but the tall man's outside his front door waiting for him. So he gets kidnapped but he manages to shoot out the back wheel and the rear tire, and it hits a pole and explodes. So he manages to get out alive. He's looking for Jody. He goes to Morningside and looks for Jody, and he finds his dad's casket because, yeah, I guess his dad was here at Morningside. That was never established, I don't think.
Well, I had just assumed that they were there because he said that the parents had died recently, and I mean, I don't think that they would have moved bodies to a different town unless they had a good reason. But yeah, I
Sure.
just didn't really question it.
No, I was just kind of surprised. It just seemed out of nowhere, you know. All of a sudden, he was like opening his dad's casket. But yeah, he sees it as empty. And in that moment, the silver spear shows up again. It starts coming towards him, but Jody steps in at the right time and shoots it with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then here's where you find out because Reggie shows up and he says that the girls all survived, so he managed to rescue them all. So I guess they did survive, but we never see them again for the rest of the movie, so they kind of just wrap that up.
Yeah. But
They find. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
then they go to this weird room and there's a whole bunch of barrels.
That's actually the room. Sorry to cut you off. It's the room that the fortune teller's daughter goes to, as well. The one that she screams at.
They go into the room and there's a whole bunch of barrels, and then there's these two metal cylinders near one of the walls. And then Mike, he puts his hand between the two poles and his hand disappears, so he sticks his head in, and then he's on like some weird other planet or dimension, and there's just a whole line of zombie dwarves for as far as the eye can see. And then he gets pulled out and he says that they've been taking people and crushing them down to half size because of the gravity.
Yeah, I guess so, and the temperature of the planet as well. I guess because I think this is where the movie just kind of like showed its hand. I was like, whoa, okay, I guess we're going to another planet now. Like, you just see this like red hot, it looked like Mars or something, and like, yeah, apparently they need all of them to be smaller and more dense so they can handle the gravity of the planet, I guess. It's so crazy.
I was
so crazy.
Almost completely lost by this point.
Yeah. So basically, they are just coming to Earth to recruit slaves for their planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the tall man must be like the leader of that planet, I guess.
If he's from this planet, that other planet, wouldn't he be a zombie dwarf as well?
Yeah, shouldn't he be short and squat? Surely being the tall man can't be a good thing on a planet where the gravity's that intense. What's the end game of this whole thing? I don't understand. What was his end game? What was he doing this for? What was it in aid of?
I don't know.
I'm lost.
Such a weird movie.
Yeah. So after this, they kind of get split up. So it says he remains in the dwarf storage room, which I guess is what they call that room that they were just in.
All right.
The dwarf storage room, and he places his hands on the portal, which then becomes a vacuum, and he nearly gets sucked into the planet.
Yeah, then they're all trying to escape. While Reggie's escaping onto the front lawn, he encounters the woman in lavender. He's trying to help her. Then she becomes evil and she stabs him.
Yeah. And then you realise that the lady in lavender actually is the tall man. Like, another incarnation of him. So, like, this guy's been having sex with other guys to help zombie slaves on his other planet. Like, it's just so weird. Yeah, so...
Talk about a date gone bad.
God, yeah. You imagine going on a date with the tall man?
Ends up a zombie dwarf.
Not worth it. um, yeah, okay, so they get outside. Yeah, so Reggie gets killed by the tall man in lavender, and Jodie and Mike get out, and the mausoleum just vanishes. Uh, and they're like, "Oh, how are we going to capture the tall man?" And they come up with this idea where they're going to go to a deserted mine shaft and trap him there. Um, did we see the mine shaft before now? I feel like that again was just like a thrown in part, like, "Oh, we have this mine shaft, let's go there," and then like,
I
you know,
don't even think they mentioned it before then. I could be completely wrong, but
same, but I didn't recognize it either. So basically, they do this whole scene again where Mike has to control his fear to lure the tall man through to the mine shaft, and they succeed and they capture him.
yeah.
And that's when the movie just kind of it did a 180 and pissed me off a little bit because all of a sudden Mike just wakes up in bed.
Yeah, he wakes up and then Reggie's there
Yeah,
and Mike is going on about how the tall man is going to escape. And then I believe Reggie says I don't know if he directly acknowledges the tall man. I'm forgetting. But then he explains to Mike that Jody had died in a car crash. Um, and this is when it started really twisting what's real and what's fake.
yeah,
Um, so they end up talking, and then Jody says, "Oh yeah, well we're gonna go on a trip. You should get out of here to distract yourself." And then Mike calms down and he goes back into his room, and then he's looking in the mirror, and behind him is the tall man. The tall man,
yeah.
the tall man straight up turns into Kratos. Boy.
It's like full. It's just so bizarre. Like it is like you said, like a nightmare. Like everything, it just fucks with your expectations. You don't know. It's like Inception. You're like, is this a dream or is this not a dream? Is it a dream within a dream? And then you're like, I don't know what's going on anymore. Like, yeah. So the tall man's there and he pulls him through the glass.
No,
And
that was a zombie dwarf.
oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
at least that's
So
what I thought.
Honestly, I can't remember what happened right at the end. It was something like that, wasn't it? I just remember being like, okay, what am I watching now? Like I was just so confused, and then it ended.
The
So the zombie
movie is
dwarf
just
pulls him through,
so bizarre.
and that's how the film ends. And I was like, how do they make a sequel out of this? I don't understand where they go from here.
Maybe they follow Reggie. I don't know.
So that
It's so weird.
it was a movie. It was a movie that I watched. um, I give it like a 5 out of 10. It's an average movie. Like I enjoyed it. It was entertaining, but it's not one that I would ever go back to again. I don't think.
I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. I mean, the performances were really wooden. Um, the music was great. The practical effects were hit or miss. It the thing that I really enjoyed about it was it feels like a nightmare. Like you can't tell what's real and what's not. Everything just seems so distant, and you feel like Mike. Everything is just going wrong. Everything is miserable. It's
Yeah,
I liked it. Wasn't the best. I
yeah.
I don't I don't see why this has a cult following.
No, I don't. I really don't. Maybe it's because of such a legacy, because it's been still going on now. Like I don't know. Maybe that's something to do with it. But yeah, it was kind of lost on me too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching the sequels, but
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'm definitely gonna be interested.
oh and I don't know if you want to know what the premise of the second one is, but it does reveal what happens kind of at the end of the movie? Do you want to
Um,
know?
let's save it for the next episode. As much as I kind of want to know, I feel like we should leave that. If it's in the second movie territory, we should just save it for the second movie.
All right.
Um, yeah, I mean, for me, 3 out of those 5 stars were just for the soundtrack alone, and the other 2 were for the story. The rest of it kind of fell apart a little bit. I don't know. I wasn't too. The acting was fine. Like, nothing stood out to me though. If I'm honest, other than the music. If
Yeah.
anyone's interested in a piece of music to check out, I specifically found the piece Hearse Inferno really good. Like I said, it's a lot of remixes of the original theme, but this one was really atmospheric. In fact, actually, I think Hearse Inferno wasn't. I think it is still the same soundtrack, but it's really different. They messed with it quite a bit. Maybe I'll include a little bit of that in with the episode, and you guys can hear it. It's only a minute long, so it kind of it comes and goes quite quickly. But it's quite a dated piece of music, but it's still nonetheless scary.
I'll have to listen to it.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Okay, so I don't really have a lot else to say about it, personally. But let's see if we can find a funny review. We'll find polarizing reviews, just because. There's a lot of 10 stars. 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. I see a 1 out of 10. Okay, I'm going to read out this 1 out of 10, titled
right.
Why is this a classic? I finally saw Phantasm, a film that is regarded as a classic. I could not for the life of me understand how anyone could love this film so much. The acting is terrible, the story makes no sense at all, and there seems to be a complete and total disregard for continuity from start to finish. And imagine my disappointment when I learned that the Tall Man, who was the least frightening horror movie villain ever, was just making people into dwarves to be slaves on his home planet. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The special effects are decent, and the chrome sphere drilling into that one guy's forehead was the only worthwhile thing in the entire movie. Michael Baldwin looks like an ugly little girl with a speech problem. And everyone around him, especially the character of Jodie, shows about as much emotion as a rock. This is an incredibly disappointing film. Many reviews on here say that once you get past the bad acting, worse script, nonsensical parts, lack of scares, lack of continuity, lack of gore, except for the one scene as Yellow Blood is hardly gore, etc., etc., that is a true classic. But really, once you get past all that, what's left? Yeah, it's fair, but I also would say that part of the reason that I don't know, the continuity disregard for me is part of what makes it kind of good.
It helps lend itself to the nightmare feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, because like you said, it kind of messes with what's going on. You don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Have you got a 10-star review? I'm trying to find one that's not too long. Everybody that writes the 10-star review on IMDb is seemingly writing their thesis about it. And I can't find one that I could just short and sweet wrap up.
I'm just seeing, like, just the title is just, like, my favorite horror film of all time. The personification of fear. Best horror film ever.
Yeah.
1979 classic, which the new generation may think is dated. These are all just like so long.
I think it's one of those movies that divides the room. I think like once you, I don't know, if you grew up with it, I imagine like it's probably like near and dear to you and people love it. But for people like me and you, Graham, who are like coming into this now in 2019, like it's probably not the same for us as it was for them.
Yeah, it very well could be a generational thing.
Yeah. Well, they have a 2016 movie now, so when we get to that eventually, maybe we'll see what the fuss is all about.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in that as well because of the fact that all the same cast show up. Even the Tall Man is in it, like the original Tall Man. So I mean, it's pretty crazy. I'm quite excited to see how much has changed over the years as well, because that's like 30, 40 years? 40 years later. That's an old movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about Phantasm.
I don't have anything else.
Saying, where would you put it on our list? If we were to make a list of all the movies we watch in order of what we enjoyed most, where would you put this one so far? Would you put it above or below Creep?
Below Creep. I think Creep was a lot better.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for us. We're on Twitter at... Oh, sorry.
Well,
go ahead.
We got to pick the movie for the next episode.
You're right. Oh my god. Okay, yeah. Why did I forget that? I was so excited all day for this, just to find out what movie we get to watch next. Let's do it. I'm excited.
All right, it's going.
Oh.
It's a pretty recent movie called Don't Breathe.
Ooh.
Have you seen this?
Good one. I have seen this. Have you?
Yes, I have. It's been a while. I'm looking forward to revisiting this.
I watched it about a year ago for the first time. I've only seen it once, and it was nail-bitingly tense. I was on the edge of my seat from start to finish, I think.
Yeah, it's a movie from 2016, and the description is, hoping to walk away with a massive fortune, a trio of thieves break into the house of a blind man who isn't as helpless as he seems.
Yeah, and it's got, I forget the actor's name. He was in 13 Reasons Why.
Dylan Minnette, I think?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. Who is kind of cool. I like him because I got a fondness towards, like, awkward actors, like Michael Cera and people like his name's Jesse Eisenberg. Actors like that are kind of just that awkward, kind of weird guy. Like,
yeah,
I'm excited.
The actor I really like in this is Stephen Lang. He is in Avatar. He's like the general in that. He plays the blind man in Don't Breathe.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I see. I know who you're on about. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm excited to get into that again. I really, really enjoyed it last time, so I'm excited to see if it still holds up a year later for me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it.
Okay, so we are on Twitter at Silver Scream Cast. Cast, no T at the end because I couldn't fit it in. Apparently there's a character limit, but just put in cast and it will come up, I'm sure. And thanks so much, guys, for checking out the Silver Scream. These are all going to be up at the same time, so I hope you've enjoyed these episodes so far if you've listened to all of them. And it'll be a couple of weeks before the next one comes out, I imagine, and then we should be on a pretty decent schedule from then of every 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much, Grahm, for coming on and doing this with me again.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Right, anyway, catch you guys later.
See ya.